At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Carbine, it's multimedia. You can get text, translate to whatever language, getting away with the legacy equipment and going into a cloud-based solution.
It's the first time in U.S. history that we have an EZNet through cloud-native call handling.
As a police officer, to have the victim go video, that's unheard of.
You're getting upgrades every month, not every year.
To schedule your free Carbine demo, please visit carbine.com/WTT.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo of the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This is episode 463, and we are currently live at the 2022 Gulf Coast Conference here in Alabama. We are in the vendor hall right now. I have got my guest here with me, and this is Gaby, Communications Operator number 3 with Opelika PD out of Alabama, and this is part 2, so we're doing this for a second time. Because
second time.
Because
second time is always better, though.
That's right. Yeah. You know,
Absolutely.
I had a couple times where I was doing some episodes, and they ended up getting deleted.
Yeah, but the second time was probably the best, even better than the first part.
It was too sweet.
Absolutely.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was so good. So here we are again, and we're getting this started. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
So you were telling me earlier that, this is your first time.
First time at the conference with the city of Opelika. Lee County 911 sends us over here. We're like super thankful because we're networking.
Yes.
When you sit in a comm center for 12 hours a day, 4 days a week, it's really hard to go ahead and reach out to anybody if it's not through social media. We're doing face-to-face interaction.
Right.
And it's so important because we get to see these people and be like, so you guys go through the same things that we do? Like I might be in Opelika, but somebody in a different county within the state is going through the same thing.
Yeah, it's one of the craziest things too, because then you find out that you're not alone in this.
Absolutely.
We're all doing this together.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But they might have some sort of policy or procedure or something
that they can pass along to us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're able to go for.
And advice, because it's very easy, when you're in the midst of things and you're like hard on yourself, like, God, this could be better. What can I do about it? They probably went through it before I did,
Right.
They got through it. They're still in the game. What knowledge can I get from them?
Exactly.
That's what I feel like I'm taking advantage of here the most. Classes, great. But the connections that you make, God, that could be a lifetime. And you want to hold on to that.
Yes, exactly. That's one of the biggest things. The networking piece is just
phenomenal.
I can't say enough about it.
Yeah,
the networking
phenomenal.
Piece, yes.
Again, like if there's any chance that your agency can send you down here, do it. Come. Like, you will not regret it. Granted, we wake up, we have 12-hour shifts. We don't want to wake up at 6:30 in the morning. We're near the beach. Why would I want to wake up so early?
Right. Yes.
But again, you're not going to regret it.
Yes.
It's like if you're not even going to work.
Yeah.
When it's done, it's done. Go do what you want to do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you end up getting back, or when you're getting ready to leave, you've got all of this different knowledge, all these different
Absolutely,
things that
to
you
bring back.
to everyone else.
Absolutely.
And you can talk to them about it, and then you talking about it even more so.
Yeah.
That builds it up for them to want to come as well.
I feel like us leaving from here, right? I'm so pumped, right? We're getting ready to end this tomorrow.
Yeah.
When I go back and I see my shift, when I see communications as a whole, I cannot wait to tell them everything that we've learned. Granted, we did bring some perks. We got a lot of merchandise. We're going to go ahead and share it with our people. That way they feel included too. It's like, hey, we're here for you guys. New supervisor, I'm here for you. Like, I promise you, I'm working hard.
That is amazing. That is excellent.
Absolutely.
So you've been doing this for about 18 months now, right?
18 months. Again, if you hear 1 year and a half, it's like, wait.
Right.
18 months is a little bit more solid. I just like I said, I just recently got promoted as a shift supervisor, and I'm finding my way. But the position, like, for me, it's like, I've only been here for 18 months, but I mean, I struggled. I knew when I was training and doing all these things, like how it felt. And now, like, for the people that are coming to us, hey, I can relate to you. I'm going to go back to where I started. I cannot forget where I started.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then how did you get involved in dispatch to begin with?
Okay. So I'm originally from Miami, Florida. I moved to Opelika. I stayed at home for 5 years with my kids. My husband was a dispatcher for 3 years. He moved to patrol. He's like, hey, it's that time for you to dip your toes back in the workforce. Why not go ahead and, get into dispatch?
Right.
So I'm like, okay, the hours, the rotation. One of us will always be with our kids, right? I knew nothing about dispatching, communications. You would think I would. That was the expectation. Hey, you're like, dispatcher's wife, husband, law enforcement wife. You should know. No.
Yeah.
Negative. That man never came home and spoke about anything.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm going into this.
You're going in green.
Yeah. I'm going into it, and it's like, oh God, we're doing the interview. This is the first interview that I have 4 people in the room, because it's the supervisor and the chain of command. And you would think that's intimidating, but listen, I looked at each and every single one of them, and I was determined. I'm like, I'm going to get this job. I've been 5 years without a job.
Nice.
I'm going to figure it out.
I like that determination.
Absolutely.
Man. Hell yes.
And then for one thing led to the other, and I was hired.
Nice. Okay. So, and the reason I asked too is because, so I started out my dispatching career in Central Florida.
Okay.
Small little police department. And then I moved back home to Southwest Michigan, finished off my dispatching career there. But when I was trying to, I was going for 2 different centers at the same time.
Oh, wow.
One of them was the county that I grew up in, and then the other one was just north of the county. So the one just north of the county, they had us do a similar interview. But they had 6 people on one side of the table and me on the other side. So it was like the county administrator, the sheriff. And
everybody.
like all these folks.
Oh, absolutely.
Every one of them had their own set of questions, but then they're all, piling on the other questions. And that one was about 3 hours long.
Wow. I can go for 3 hours.
Dude, I know. I was going back and forth.
Were you intimidated? You had, I said 4 people an hour. You said 6. I'll challenge that. 6 people, 3 hours.
So I think the only time I flinched, was, so the room was hot as it was. And I think they did that on purpose. To see if we could make it through. Yeah. I just remember the sweat going down my back, and I was like, "Hell no!
This is 3 hours. What am I going to do?"
This is horrible. Yeah, and they didn't even tell you how long it was going to be.
Yeah,
we just ended up going that long. But the question that they got me on, not that it was bad or anything, but one of them said, "So, when was the last time you smoked marijuana?" And I was like, "Oh, I mean, like in high school." And they're like, "Okay," and I said, "Is that it?" And they're like, yeah, and I say I flinched because I wasn't expecting, that or anything. So then I remember they had their person who was doing the background checks come to my house.
Wow.
Because they had to do another interview and stuff.
Yeah.
But also for the drug test,
they came to your house to do the drug test too?
No.
Oh, I was like, okay,
I did
that's
that there,
different.
but they came to do a background part there and interview me for that. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing.
Okay.
But when I was there, they cut a chunk of my hair.
Oh.
Yeah. because they said
That
no.
took a turn.
Yeah.
Wow,
They said,
that's different.
we don't do like a urine test here. We take a piece of your hair because, drugs or whatever that last
Okay,
longer in the
I
follicles.
heard about that. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I was like, well,
Just
can
like-
you take a small piece here? And it was like, dude, just a chunk out of the side of my
uneven
head.
haircut. You'll be okay.
Dude, it was
It'll grow
jacked.
back.
Yeah. He's like, you want the job, right? And it was like, snip.
Sure.
Yeah. It was like a chunk like
I'll give
that.
you anything.
Just put it in the baggie. I
Yeah.
was like, okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I ended up getting the job at the other one, which was the one that I wanted to go to anyway, because
Yeah.
it was the county that I grew up in.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
But you end up going through the interview process. Now, before that, did you get a chance to do a sit along? Because again, like you said, you were going in green.
So again, it was like, I went in there and it was like, well, you've seen it. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I saw it once, but like, I still don't know what
Right,
it
it's
is.
like, I want
know?
a sequel, please.
And
Like,
I still remember when I walked in there, like all these screens,
Yeah.
all these calls that are going out, multiple people on there, and I'm like, okay, this is like legit.
yeah.
This is the real deal. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna do this. Yeah. The only thing my husband told me was like, it's gonna be hard. I'm like, how hard? He's like, it's gonna be hard. Like, it's difficult. I'm not gonna tell you it's easy. I'm like, well, technically, you didn't tell me anything at all. So
Right. Like, I didn't know what to expect.
you didn't tell me anything at all.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I am not gonna back down from a challenge.
Yes.
So
That is good.
walking in there, I'm like, absolutely. Can you do it? Yeah, let's do it. Am I going to make it out? We'll find out. We'll find out if I make it out of training.
Yes.
Yeah. And I cannot forget my days in training. Gosh, like I said, I hold on to that. Like there were days I was leaving and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like this is a real deal job.
Yes.
People are calling in on the worst time of their lives. Right. And I feel like, or I'm a strong believer in the fact that your work is going to be as good as the time that you put into it.
Exactly.
I was
Yes.
going home studying on the days that I was working my 12 hours, right? And then on my off days, I was creating PDFs, all these things so that I can lock that in there. Like you need to know this. Like if you want to pass, you need to know this. And I don't know if people still train that way or if people still put in the time for that. And it's so important. The work that you're going to come out of it, it's as much as you put into it.
I fully agree. And I was the same way. So it's good to know that there are more dispatch nerds out there like me too. Because
Absolutely.
I did the same thing. I would be at home and I would be going through, different protocols or 10 codes or whatever and just testing myself.
The 10 codes is a new language.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm bilingual. So like I speak English and Spanish, but now I got to go and learn my 10 codes. That's a whole different language. And it's
Yes.
funny because I would hear my husband and his coworkers, they'd come around, in the house and they'd be like, oh, this 10 code. I'd be like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. You're like, all right.
And now it's my turn to learn it.
Yes.
I'm going to find out what they've been talking about ever since.
Yeah.
I am getting in that conversation.
Well, and also the phonetics, you gotta learn all the
Absolutely.
phonetics.
So
and everything,
again,
too.
I'm somebody who stayed home for 5 years. I was just doing, my associates don't know what I was going to do with my life.
Yeah.
I get incorporated into this world of law enforcement, fire department. I'm like, what is this place? This is so brand new. Like this is a brand new place.
It's like Wonderland. What is going on?
Yeah, you don't know what to expect any single day.
Right.
But the time that I spent in training,
Mhm.
when I flourished is when I made a mistake. I will
Oh.
never forget my trainer, right? I'm sorry.
Oh, this is going to be good. I can already tell.
Right. We're working night shift and I'm still training. And, it's like we get the call and it's like somebody prowling around this person's house. And it's an older lady, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, is everything okay? Do you hear anything? I'm going through I'm like, yeah, I'm nailing these questions. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we have someone en route to you. Click. She looks at me. She's like, what did you do wrong? And I was like, I asked all the questions and she's like, somebody's around her house. She thinks somebody's around her house. I was like, I should call them back, shouldn't I? I got that read out button so hard. I said, man, I'm so sorry I let you go. I should have kept you on the phone. And that's when I learned Ask me if I ever let go of a high priority call.
Yeah.
Ask me if I ever hung up on a person again.
Right. Yes. There's those moments, those
the mistakes that you make.
moments. Yes, where you're like, oh my gosh,
That's like-
I should have. Yeah.
People usually are afraid of making mistakes. Like, listen, I'm going to make that mistake. I promise you I won't do it again.
Yeah.
Just because of that feeling that you have
Right.
when you make a mistake.
And you've held on to that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Right.
how I got better at
Yeah,
what I
that's-
was doing.
Yes, that's the only. So people say this all the time, and I'm a firm believer in it as well. Like, if
Yeah.
you're not failing, you're not learning.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's so much to it that ends up going into this job,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, especially when someone says something to you like that, you're like,
Well, because it's like, everybody trains differently.
right. Yeah.
Everybody learns differently. Not like the styles, but the way that they get their knowledge
Yes.
in their heads, right? It was more of like, I don't know if I would have made it out of training if somebody was holding my hand. This is not the career to hold
Right.
somebody's hand in. This is the career where you got to go. You got to do it. Just do it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things in comparison there that I remember when I was in training at the so I went from a small police department in Florida to like a county central dispatch
Wow.
in the
Big
where I
change.
was where I grew up in Southwest Michigan. So I'm there. And I'm learning all this stuff. I'm learning to work as a team because at the city PD, it was just me by myself for 8 hours.
Wow.
Just going.
Yeah.
But it was a small PD.
Yeah.
So
But now you're going to a bigger agency where you have coworkers.
Call volume. Yeah, call volume and all of this other shit.
Yeah.
So trying to learn all of that. And I remember one of the calls that I took while on training was one of my first 911 calls there. And it was a domestic violence one. And it was all verbal, but the way it sounded, like,
Cringy.
stuff sounds like
Cringy,
way
absolutely.
worse than what it is sometimes.
Yeah.
And I remember I was trying to remember the code and I'm trying to punch it in on the computer and I couldn't get it. And
Or like your nerves were setting in from it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So then I end up cupping the phone and or my headset rather,
Yes.
and I look at my trainer
Yeah.
and I was like, "You're going to have to take this." And she goes, "No." She goes,
Yes.
"You are going to take this. You're going to learn.
Your trainer's probably
going to
see this and be like, absolutely, you're
Yes,
going to take
yeah,
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, "Okay," and I did it, and I did fine. And she's
Yeah.
like, "You see, I told you."
Yeah.
Because all you had to
Just
do
trust.
was breathe, basically.
Take your first breath.
Yes,
All right.
exactly. Yeah. And so, but after that, every single domestic call that I would take, like I was just
Hitting
on the
it,
spot.
hitting it, hitting
Yes,
it. Yeah.
because
That's
I
what I'm saying.
remembered that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that you hold on to. And even then, it's like, there's going to be times where this is the first call you take. It could be months. Even if you get released from training and you learned it from the book. Now, when you get it 5 months down the line, you've been released from training, you're not going to bring that book out. This is a high priority call in progress.
You don't have time to start going
No.
through it.
And you're not going to look at somebody else and be like, if we're all busy, we're all going. I'm not going to look at my partner and be like, hey, can you help me out? Can you help me out? I really need help. No, negative. You better figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's literally thinking on your feet.
Yes.
At all times.
Split second decisions, and it's just
Absolutely.
what?
Now on the downtime, listen. On the downtime, I'm like, la la la. Like, just let me relax a little bit before we got to go back into it,
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly. So then, kind of looking at your agency, how many people are on the floor at a time?
Okay, so on my shift, we have 3, and that's including myself. We're leading to have 4 because it works. We have a dispatch channel, we have a TAC channel, and that's all our information, our licenses, our registration, all of that is going into there.
Nice.
And then we have call taking and dispatching fire. The 4th person will take the overflow. That's what we're rooting for. But I will say it's all about the teamwork because right now I'm working day shifts. We go from, we rotate every 4 months from days to nights, and day shift, my gosh, I'm sorry, but day shift is a whole different ball game because you're dealing with so many people, detectives, you're dealing with admin, which is great. You're helping everybody out, but it's like, you guys hold down the fort. I need to go use the bathroom now. Like rotate.
Yes.
There's not enough time to do anything. And, we want to make sure that we're doing quality work, but it will not flow well if you don't work with your coworkers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you have to work like a well-oiled machine.
A whale? Yes, that's a perfect reference. I literally always look at them. I'm like, look, we do a debrief now. Like, now that I became shift supervisor, I do a debrief. Hey, what can we do to make it flow better? We communicate with patrol as well to be like, hey, what can we do to improve? What can you guys do to improve?
Right. No more mic clicks.
It's literally because it's back and forth. We're working with them all the time. Like, how are we not going to have teamwork? How are we going to shy away from that? I'm like, if we don't work well together, if we don't literally read each other's minds, this is all going to fall apart. And like, we literally have no room to fall apart on day shift. Night shift maybe, but there's going to be some downtime.
Right. Yeah.
We don't ever want it to fall apart because these are people's lives.
Yes.
That
exactly.
that we're with. But man, if we don't work on that teamwork, that's one thing I would say. If you're listening to this, your agency, you guys are having team working skill problems, work on it. Because you guys are going to get better at everything that you do.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Now, do you work 8 or 12-hour shifts?
We work 12-hour shifts. And it's from, right now I'm working 6 in the morning to 6 at night.
Oh, snaps. Okay, so for my time, I was always on midnights, except for when I got promoted.
Always on midnights?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, except for when I got promoted to supervisor. Nobody wanted this one morning shift. And I'm a low person.
I'm curious as to why nobody wanted it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
I'm just going to wave at the camera.
Okay, perfect.
And for those who are listening,
okay. Okay. That's how we'll leave it.
Yes. But I ended up, of course, I was a low person on the pole there, so I took the shift. Mm-hmm. So mornings, I didn't really dig it, especially because I lived about 45 minutes away from where I worked.
Yeah.
Because ignorance is bliss, and I don't want to know what's going on with my neighbors, So it would suck getting up that early in the morning.
So when you were supervisor, were you working a regular shift as well?
Yeah, I was on the line. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, on the line supervisor. So
okay, what was the time that you were working?
It was 4:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon.
Crickets.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I would wake up at 3 in the morning.
Wow.
I would
Yeah.
leave
Yeah,
by
because you got to commute.
Yeah. So
wow.
I would have to leave by 3:30 to get there at 4:15 to get briefed from the night supervisor, and then take those 15 minutes to get ready and have my team ready to start at 4:30.
Gosh, I'm so curious. How much caffeine were you holding on to? Was your thing mostly?
I had officers who would come up from one of the local CDPDs, and they would bring me a can of Monster almost every morning, and that's what we would sit. We would sit, drink Monster, and just chill. Yeah, have some like breakfast burritos or some shit.
Oh my gosh, a Monster that early in the morning?
Yeah, dude. I'm sure my stomach was like, "Are you serious? Like, why?"
Well, it's funny because we're in these classes, right? And they're like, wellness. What would you get rid of? Or actually, you need to get rid of nicotine, alcohol, and energy drinks. And everybody's just like looking at themselves in the room, and they're like, negative. We thrive on that. Obviously the alcohol on the days off. But, the nicotine and the energy drinks, they are literally like negative. I am not getting rid of
Yeah. Or
that's
coffee,
like pumped in my... Listen, the coffee, there was people who were saying, I'd rather have an energy drink over coffee. I said, come again. We make shots of espresso. I'll take like 5 shots of espresso all day shift. But hold on.
Flying.
I have no effect to it.
Oh,
I just enjoy the taste. Like, I'll be sleepy and I'm like, I have a problem. I should be zooming
to the veins.
Yeah, I should be zooming right now. I should be on it. No, I'm like falling asleep. It's like, come on, you got to get it together.
Oh man. See, so then, that's how it was for, I think it was like 3 or 4 months on that morning shift. But then after that, it was all nights, and that was my jam, man. Like midnight
you
shift.
You were a night owl then.
Loved me some midnight shift. Yeah.
Okay, so full moon. You believe in that?
Hell yes.
Okay.
Hell yes.
I was about to say, they were trying to debunk that in one of the classes. I said, no, we know when it's a full moon because they're all out.
Right. Yes. It's either a full moon, actually, a full moon is basically the equivalent of somebody saying the Q word in dispatch. Like, you don't do it.
Oh my gosh. And you know what's funny? Because the officers will come in there and they'll be like, gosh, it's so cute. And I literally give them the death stare. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right. Do you want to break your leg?
Like, are you kidding me? You just said it. Just wait. You didn't have any reports before. Guess what? You're going to have everything loaded on you.
All of it.
All of it on
jerk.
you. You're gonna regret it. And then guess what? They'll come in the next day and they're like, I'm sorry. like I said the Q word, I will never say it again.
Yeah.
You learned your lesson.
Yeah, you better recognize. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
So how about some of your earlier calls? Like, do you remember your first call? And the reason I say this is because my first night in dispatch, when I started out in Florida, I oh man. So the chief of police ends up coming over to my house. He wants to see if I still want the job, and I said yes. And I thought, there are a lot of times when you are going to get, or when you're going to start a new job, you're starting like the following week, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I asked the chief. Then he goes, actually, you start tonight. And I said, oh, really? And he goes, I mean, you want the job, right?
Sure.
And I said, well, yeah, I do. I didn't realize it was going to be starting this soon.
Yeah.
So I work a 10p to 6a shift.
Yeah.
And I go in, I meet my supervisor, who was, I'll just say, very seasoned. He was awesome, though, Harry, very awesome.
Yeah.
And I think he was like in his 70s. This was 2001.
Yeah.
So, and I go in, he shows me everything. He takes a 911 call. I observe him, and then he turns around and looks at me, and he goes, okay, you're next.
Getting thrown to the wolves.
Yes, straight up, dude. Like, just right into the pit. And I'm like, like, are you serious? Like,
save me.
Yeah, and I thought he was joking. So
Yeah.
I kind of laugh, and he just like gives me this death stare, and he's like, no, I'm serious. He goes, the only way you're going to learn how to do this is by doing it. He goes, so you've got the next call. So I'm sitting there just sweating and nervous as hell because I don't know how this is going to go down.
Oh, you don't know what you're going to get on
and
that
the
other
phone,
end.
Yeah, the phone rings. Frostproof 911, where's your emergency? Oh, it was a butt dial. So I was like, oh, thank God.
Ooh, we dodged the bullet on that one.
Exactly.
So, okay. You're absolutely right. You want to know what my first call was when I was, you know? Yeah.
Yes.
So my first call, I'm doing mostly like released from training because that obviously it's like, hey, the training wheels are off. It's a robbery in progress. Hold on. In Spanish.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. It was in Spanish. It was actually, I was like, okay, I can tell. I was already certified or, approved by the city to go ahead and, speak Spanish over these calls.
Yeah.
And I'm the only bilingual dispatcher. So obviously that day is the day that I'm going to get that robbery in progress call in Spanish, out of all every other thing, it's going to be that day.
Right.
But I can tell that he was having trouble saying something in English. And I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty sure this guy speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
He did. And, being bilingual, I'm literally processing this information in Spanish, trying to make sure I'm putting it into the CAD correctly in English with the 10 code that we need so that the dispatcher could start getting someone en route.
Right. Yes.
And I'm telling you, I was sweating because I was like, I pray to God that I'm getting all the right information. The guy was scared. He was like, this person, he took my cell phone. I don't know where I am. So we're trying to figure out where he's at, because he's terrified. And like, hey, we're going to get help to you. I promise. Like, we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And we go through it and, officers finally get there. Then it turns into a whole other commotion. Like it was pretty busy for that first call that I took. And
what was that like?
Gosh, I was like relieved. Like I literally once I knew and I heard, because we have the radios, the select, unselect.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
I hear on the unselect because I'm selected to fire because I'm the call taker. I hear the dispatch and they're like, I'm on scene. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to disconnect out. Obviously, I say it in Spanish. And I look at my coworkers and I'm like, out of all the calls that I could have gotten for my first call, the robbery in progress in Spanish is the first one that I get.
Moly.
And I mean, it was like super overwhelming because it's like, I got to do this right in English, right? I got to make sure I do it right in Spanish, and doing that person a service to make sure that it was right. It ended up being right. I was like, whew, I hope I never go through this again.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot that goes into translating a call like that because, like you said, you have to. It's almost like you're doing it, a few different times.
You're shifting. And I will say, being the only bilingual dispatcher there, everybody is curious. All my coworkers are curious. They're really intrigued. They want to know. So I try to teach them as much as possible. Like, look for these cues or tell them, hey, we're going to get help to you. That way they feel engaged with them too. I don't feel like I'm, used in any way, because I'm literally like, hello, like, we're trying to reach out to this Hispanic community and tell them that we're there for them.
Exactly.
So I usually just try to lean on that. And I will say, like, if I go back to back, there's been times, mostly on night shift, that it's back to back, Spanish to Spanish to Spanish. And I'm like, okay, I need to take a breather, because I'm shifting. My brain is shifting constantly to make sure the English and Spanish is matching up.
Do you tell your team that you need to take a breather, but do you accidentally say it in Spanish instead?
Oh, I'll be saying things all the time in Spanish, and they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, don't worry about it. It's not appropriate. Obviously we leave the room and, we finish shift. I'm like, hey, that's what that meant. Yeah. Don't repeat it.
Well, okay. So, talking about, speaking different languages and everything, there was one time that I was dispatching, and I'm on backup phones and radios.
Yeah.
And so it's the way my center was, it was like the two main phone consoles are here, and then on the other side it's backup and then main radios.
Yeah.
And then on this side here we had our supervisor spot. Nobody really sat there, but for whatever reason,
if you weren't the supervisor, don't sit there.
Yeah. Well, and one of my coworkers is sitting there, right?
Yeah.
And she's taking this call, and I hear her getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And she's sending messages to another coworker and I, and she's just saying, this person's got a thick accent. I don't know if it's Spanish or not. You might have to translate. So she goes, listen. So I'm listening, and I'm like, no, this is not Spanish at all.
Yeah.
I said, but if you want me to talk to the person, I will. I'll try. And she goes, no, I'll take care of it. So then finally, she ends up belting out, sir, I can't understand you. I don't speak Spanish. And and she goes, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so of course, the good coworkers that we are, we end up going into the playback right away, because you can do it on the fly.
Yeah.
So what happened was, she yells that, sir, I don't understand you. I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And he yells back, I don't speak Spanish either. I'm Indian.
The Indian. Yeah. You sometimes they confuse it, and I'm like, use the translating service. We'll figure it out. We'll all work together as a team to figure out how we can help them.
It turned out that it was a motorist assist that was the issue. So it was, everything was fine.
Yeah.
But while she's still on the phone with him, again, the good coworkers that we are, we're replaying that one part loud so that she can hear it.
Yeah.
And she's just flipping us her finger. And then she gets off and she goes, you guys are jerks. And we're like,
he said it in the beginning, sweetie.
Yes, like, it's all good.
With that playback, I agree with that. We don't hone in on it though. Like, I train someone. I was like, if you touch that playback and if you say 10-4, which is like, okay, acknowledging them, we're gonna have a problem, because you need to know what they say.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Gosh, it's like anything can happen on the fly.
Exactly.
And then you're going to say like, okay, I understood your information that you gave me. Something flies out of the way. And then what? What are you going to do?
Right.
Don't rely on that recorder, man. Don't rely on the recorder, you guys.
Do not rely on the recorder, because it might not record. And I remember
absolutely.
There were a couple times where we had folks that were in training and they were starting to rely on it. And
it's such a bad habit.
Yeah, and they were on radio, and they acknowledged, and the trainer's like, "Did you understand, or did you hear them?" Like, I'm going to try to play it back, and there was no playback.
Oh yeah, it didn't record. Yeah.
So then they have the double embarrassment of then having to key up and ask them to repeat. Yeah, yeah. Or there was, if I remember correctly, there was one time somebody sent a message to the MCT and said, "Can you tell me that again?" And they're like, "You better call me on the radio."
Absolutely, we're not going to do it.
This is going to be recorded, and it's basically it's going to be your ass.
Cover your P's and Q's.
Right. Yes.
At all times. Absolutely. I will say, like, I'm not one, like, I'm not going to deny that I haven't used it, but then when I start seeing that it's a bad habit for me, I'm like, you guys don't repeat what I'm doing right now.
Right.
I will not touch it again. I promise. I'm going to just tell them you need to repeat yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Super important.
Yeah,
for
you
stuff
just got to
like
go in there and have someone repeat and just kind of
at that point. Listen, I literally had a heart to heart. I had the heart to heart with officers, right? Like, some of them were there, and then our dispatchers. I'm like, look, you guys got to cut it out, right? Don't take it personal if I'm telling you to repeat your traffic. I didn't understand what you were saying. Can you work with me? Just repeat it. I'll help you out.
Do you ever have any times where you kind of chuckle on the radio?
Not my supervisor.
Their supervisor's looking right at her. Okay.
Okay. So no. Listen, I have
I'll give you the story.
me being keyed up. It has never gone through. Now, do I have my coworker who's keyed up, and I'm in the back of the room, and you can hear me laughing?
Yes.
And she's proof because she was working a shift with us, and she was like, "I can hear you in the background laughing." I was like, "I promise, I'll try to be quieter."
Well, and the only reason I ask is because sometimes those are the moments that kind of break up the chaos that is 911, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or you've got open mic incidents that happen, and our radio, it was an older radio system, so we would hit the button to key up, and then when we would unkey, we would think we were, it wasn't hot anymore,
God. It was
and then we just go back to talking, and so then you can see it on the screen that it's open. So we start hitting the button really hard.
Yeah.
And then when it finally unkeys, an officer keyed up and he goes, Central, is everything okay up there? And we're like, 10-4, affirmative, it is. Shut up.
That like recently, there was a time, right? I was sitting in one of the consoles, and I call it the little lightning strike to show that you're still keyed up.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not me. I unplugged everything. I was just taking everything out, and then I was like, that's still not me. And I'm selected to the channel. I said, unselect from the channel. I don't know what's going on. Did anything go over? We finally figured it out. It was unkeyed. We go back to the playback and nothing recorded. I said, yes, I am not getting written up today. Not today.
Not today, Satan. Not today.
Not today. I mean,
yes.
That thing about hot micing, listen, that is a nightmare. I do not want to live through that. I do not want to live through that.
Yeah.
The fact that you see that and you're like, God, if we say one thing wrong right now, it's going to be admin that's listening to it if you're on day shift. If you're on night shift, guess what? Your lieutenant and your sergeants are listening to it. They're going to come and get you.
Yes. Yeah. Well, okay. When I was on radio, the sergeants out on the road, they knew that if there was something that they wanted, something funny, to come to me because they knew that I would do it. And the fact that I was supervisor on duty, it made it even better. So there was one time that it was April Fool's Day. And one of the sergeants calls me up and he goes, I need you to think of some sort of prank for all of my folks out on the road.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'll try to think of something. So it was excellent because they were having so many issues with their new MCTs.
Yeah.
And they were getting updates like daily.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this is perfect. This is what I'm going to do.
Oh my gosh.
So I go over the air and I said, Elegant Central to all stations and units, we're about to do
especially
an
with that voice.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
We're about to do an update on your MCTs. What we need you to do is pull over and stay stationary for about 30 seconds.
Oh my gosh, did they do it?
Well, people were sending me messages saying, "Is this real?"
Absolutely.
Yeah. I said, "For real? Yeah, it is 100%. This is real."
Yeah.
And people were just saying 10-4.
Yeah.
And then someone keyed up a little bit after because I'm just sitting there dying laughing, but also thinking I'm going to get murdered. Like these guys.
These guys are going to come in one by one,
right,
to come and get me.
So someone keys up and goes, "Has that been enough time?" And I key up and I said, "That's affirmative. You can go ahead and continue on your way." By the way, happy April Fool's Day from dispatch as well as Sergeant so-and-so.
Oh my gosh. Listen, if we can get, if that would ever be approved, I would, maybe one day we got to keep.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so I ended up getting a lot of messages back in the MCT, some saying that was awesome and others saying you're an asshole. But then later on at the end of the shift, the sergeant comes in and he goes, dude, why'd you call me out? I said,
because you asked me.
Yes, I said, because I was not about to go down, and if I go down, you're going down with me.
I can't say that I'll ever call out one of my superiors over the radio.
Oh, dude,
That's wrong.
It was amazing.
I love all my superiors.
Yes,
I would say that's one of the things that I strive for the most. We're there for 12 hours, 4 days a week.
Yeah.
I strive to have the greatest relationship with them so that we're all driving on the same page.
For sure. Yeah. You have to have that. You build that camaraderie, right? Not just with those that are in the center with you, but everybody out there in the field. Because as you were saying earlier, the more they know about what you do and the more you know about what they do, the easier it is to work together.
Absolutely. But I feel like people are intimidated. They're the ones that have the stripes. They're in that uniform. How are you going to strike a conversation with them without feeling intimidated?
Yeah.
Me, I'm like, you know what? Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Let's just have the conversation. I'm sorry if I make you uncomfortable. I'm just trying to figure out how we can work better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I will say, I'm like, super, super, super blessed to have the people that I work with, and that's all working together and building the team.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
I was the same way with all my sergeants, lieutenants, and stuff. They would walk in, I would just be like, "Hey, what's up, guy? What's up, bro? It's like, what's going on?" And they would respond the same way. So it made it a lot easier to
Gosh,
be
it
able
made
to do things and just
a better
understand.
work environment, I would
Yes,
say.
yes.
Absolutely, having such a good
Yeah.
connection with them. Absolutely.
So you've been doing this 18 months now.
Mhm.
What is a call? And of course, as long as you feel comfortable
Yeah.
talking about it, but a call that kind of sticks with you.
So there's a call that sticks with me, and I think it's because it's the moment that everything clicked for me that of how important this job is.
Yeah.
There's people out there who will say like, "Oh, you're just a dispatcher." Negative. After I took this call, it was
Yes.
like, no, we are more than that.
Right.
So I was working night shift. Again, I was the call taker, and the female is on the phone and she's crying immediately. So I'm like, oh boy, like this is definitely domestic, has to be.
Yeah.
She's crying and she's saying, my husband is drunk. I'm with my baby. He's recorded me on live, and he's saying, hey, I have he has a gun. I'm like, great. Like, we got to get that out there now. Dispatcher has to get it out, weapons involved, all these things. So she's crying and I'm like, this is my time right now. If I don't intervene in some way, this can go either way. Either I do something about it and she doesn't get hurt, or something happens and I'm mediocre with it and, they can die. Right. And so I'm keeping her engaged with me, and I can hear him in the background, and he's just like screaming at her and talking back to her. And, I'm trying to calm her down because she's crying. Her kid is crying. I can hear her kid. I have kids. At that moment, I had to disengage any feeling that I had. I don't want to think about my kids. I don't want to think about anything. My mission right now is to get you some help and hope that we get there on time. Right.
Right.
So we're getting all that information, and I'm trying to figure out where the weapon is, because obviously she said he has a gun. And I'm talking to her and I hear him talking. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And I'm like, hey, can you put me on speaker? She puts me on speaker and I get his attention. I'm like, hey, I need you to back up. Like, I need you to leave her alone. Leave her and your child alone. Tell me where the gun is. We end up figuring out where the gun is. I get him to be like, I'm like, leave the gun where it's at. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I'm like, get out of the house. I'm going to grab you if I can with my voice. Get out of the house right now.
Yeah.
I was able to go ahead and get him out of the house, and she was inside. I stayed on the phone. I stayed on the phone the whole time.
Well done.
I stayed on the phone the whole
You
time.
learned.
and finally, it was my lieutenant and other officers that were in there, and they found him. They still searched for the house. The gun was separated from him. He didn't have it. He ended up going to jail.
Wow.
And I mean, for me, that was success, because that was my real moment that I was like, God, like it was anything that if I would have done that call any differently, like this could have gone sideways.
Right. Yes.
And I try not to hold on too much to the hard calls. I'll try to talk about it, with my coworkers or with my husband if I have to. But this call, I hold on to it so much because it's like, if people don't recognize the importance of their job, like what we do is super important.
Right.
And we got to bring light to that.
Yes.
Like everything that you do in training, out of training, every single time that you take a phone call, even if it's the same person that's calling over and over and over again, what if it changes? You know what I mean? It's just that one thing that it made it all click for me.
Damn. You've been doing this for 18 months.
Yeah.
I can see why you've been, promoted as well,
Oh, thank
quickly.
you. Thank you.
But also, even though your husband never talked about the job,
not one bit.
Just listening to you talk about this, and it's like this was meant for you.
And you know what? Like it's literally like fate, because I jive so well with the people that I work with. If there's ever a bad time, like, hey, we'll get through it.
Yeah.
We'll get through it. And I try to tell everyone, like, even if they have a bad day or a bad call or anything like that, I'm like, you need to realize the importance here. If there's ever a day that we're not getting along with our officers, just let it fizzle out. We'll go back and we'll talk to them and figure out what's going on. Like, don't be so hard on yourself.
Exactly.
And I will say I've been one that was hard on myself. I think back of like, if I could tell myself something when I first started, don't be so hard on yourself. Gosh, I would cry. I would cry all the time because I was like, God, I'm not getting it. Like, I'm not getting the 10 codes. I'm not getting the jurisdiction. I was living in Opelika for 5 years. You would think that I know the roads. Negative. I did not know anything. But with the resources that I had, with the questions that I have, if I look at my supervisor, she's not looking at me right now, but
No, she's eating an ice cream bar.
she would be one that I was like, listen, I ask a lot of questions. Like, I don't think you're prepared. I don't think, because I'm so
good though.
I'm so interested in knowing how, how does this system work? What's the reason why we take these calls these ways? You can never, ever stop learning.
Exactly.
And that's what I lean on. And I'm not perfect by any means. I don't try to go ahead. I will never be one to be like, I'm one of the best dispatchers. No. It's just me trying my best every single day.
Damn. Well said. Holy jeez. So, so how do you feel? Do you feel like the job has changed you at all in this 18 months? Like, is there anything that you feel like has changed you? Like, for me, I'm, and I try not to be, but I'm like a little more suspicious of like everything. Just because there's so many different calls that we take, right? So there's all of these different elements, and sometimes it just kind of sticks with you. But also, like sleep patterns. Oh my God, I've been out of dispatch for 9 years, but my ass still stays up at like 2 a.m, but my internal clock wakes up at 6.
So working day shift. I'm getting ready to go to night shifts very soon. I'm going to be rotating back and forth. I stay at home, when my kids, when I'm off, I'm taking care of them. I got to be up during the day. So I'm going to be all messed up. My schedule, listen, I'm a mom. My schedule is always messed up. Right. But like for me, like I'm super hyper vigilant with everything, everywhere that I go, everything that I do. I'm a lot more open, though. I would say I was reserved in some areas, but I'm a lot more open to my surroundings and figuring out like how people are. Like we talk to people all the time, but when I'm actually out and about, like I'm literally looking all the time.
Yes.
And I'm not even I'm pretty sure this is what officers do.
Probably, yeah. Exactly.
They're always got to make sure they're watching out their back and stuff like that. But like we're off the clock, and now we're a part of the citizen, like the civilization. I would say, we're a part of them. Like, what calls? I will say, I'm like, what calls are going out right now? Like, I'm out. I'm out and about in the city. What is day shift dealing with right now? Because I don't see anything going on.
Like, so for me, it's dispatch ear. Like I can't turn it off.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been out 9 years, and it's still. I'll be sitting in a restaurant with family or friends or whatever.
It's like
and
turning a knob.
All of these conversations are going on, and they're like, "Where are you at?" I'm like listening to this person over here who's having an issue with their boyfriend. That other person over there is constipated. Like. Like all of these different conversations going on.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to all of them, but then, the person who's in front of me, I'll repeat everything that they've said. They're like, how do you do that? It's like, I'm trained.
I'm trained. This is what I was trained to do.
This is how we do.
Well, like for me though, I will say like I'm super interested in reaching out to the community more ever since I went into this job.
Yeah.
There's so many people that don't know what this job is.
Exactly.
So we went, a coworker and I, one of the patrol officers, she's bilingual as well. We went out to the middle school, right? And I'm like, it's the officer, like, yeah, like everybody's like, yeah, an officer, which is great. I love my officers. But they're like, okay, and this is Operator Sandy Esteban. And they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, when you call 911, like I'm who you get. And they're like, just you all the time? No.
Yeah.
You're going to get my coworkers. But it's like, it's so crazy to me how it doesn't seem like they're teaching anybody anymore. Like, hey, you need, like for at least little kids, like, hey, you need to know your address.
Yeah.
You need to know your address. If something happens, call 911. What are you supposed to do? And it's explaining to them too, like it's not just 911 that we deal with. Like, hey, I keep track of where all the officers and firefighters are at all times. Like, I got to make sure I know where they are. Like, we do a lot. And it was funny because we did like a scenario with the kids. We said the scenario about like a crazy clown or something like that. They were laughing and jiving, but they understood it. They took something from it.
Yes.
At the end of it. And if like we can get that, not just like our agency, any agency goes out there and puts their dispatchers, our job will get out there a lot more.
Yeah.
And you'll see like, hey, we work hand in hand with the officers. Like we're behind their ear. at all times. Where their eyes, I would say eyes and ears, because we're looking at the maps and all these things.
Of course.
I mean, I will never say, like my job is more important than the officers. Negative. We both go through different things, and as long as we,
Got the voice.
as we're going ahead and we're respecting each other's roles and doing it, like, come on, bro, we're gonna kick some butt.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
So as we go into the wrap up of this episode, which has been amazing.
Thanks.
To have
It has been awesome.
about you and everything.
Absolutely.
So now you had mentioned if you could go back in time, you would tell yourself not to be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
But let's look at those who because you've been doing this 18 months. So those who are around the same area of the time that you have.
Yeah.
Some advice, even for those who are just starting out, any advice that you would have, for those that, when they're taking calls or they're in training and they feel like, man, I'm alone in this, or maybe I can't do this. What would you tell those people?
Well, first off, you just saying that like you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone. There's plenty of resources out there for us. Social media groups that you can join in on stuff. Like if that's your thing, go that route. If not, try to see if you can get together with any of your other coworkers.
Right.
When you're feeling overwhelmed, take a time to just breathe and trust within yourself. I would say it takes some time to actually get a passion for this job, because it's so scary to know that you have these people's lives in your hands. You're the first call taker for all these things,
Right.
Breathe, put in the work. Gosh, because if you put in the work, the quality you're going to get out of it is immaculate.
Yes.
And for me, who's, like I said, 18 months, I just got promoted into a shift supervisor role. Don't think that you're going to, like, if you feel like you want to move up, it can happen. If you believe in yourself, if you prove it in your work, if you communicate with everyone and you're just open to everything, you just never know where you can go next. And I'm like I said, I feel like I'm just fortunate with the fact that I had to do a mindset shift. There were times that I was like, hey, they were like, hey, you need to work on this. You did this wrong. And I was like, gosh, I'm doing everything wrong. It wasn't until I looked within myself and I said, okay, you did that wrong, but this is for you to improve. If you don't work on that, guess what? You're not going to get any better. It wasn't until I started changing the victim mentality that I had of like, why me? I'm always doing everything wrong. I don't do anything right. That I excelled. That's when I was like, oh, okay, I did that wrong. All right, that won't happen again. Let's go.
Hell yeah.
I take those calls and, like, I'm telling you, me and my coworkers, we're hitting it, we're going, and we'll stop and we'll take a break. And I'm like, man, we did some good work. And it was all because we believed in ourselves at the end of the day. Yeah,
oh, man.
100%.
You made me miss this session. Yeah, I mean, I miss it anyway, but
gosh, but you're reaching out to so many people.
I'm trying. Definitely trying.
The fact that this is even, like, you're going to keep going and going, like, anybody that listens to this, just believe in yourself. And if you love this job, gosh, there's so many outlets that you can take, especially being in this conference. Like, I didn't know there were so many outlets. Like, there's so many things that you can do. Right now, I'm just like, I'm enjoying it. I get a good call every now. Now I'm like supervisor, got to make sure everything's going good, flowing well. I love it. But every now and then I get that good call and I'm like, man, I still haven't lost my touch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I got to hone in on that and remember who I am. Remember where I started and know that I know how to do my job really well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, it has been amazing to have you on this episode.
Thank you so much.
This was great. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Absolutely.
Tonight. At the end of the night tonight is the shrimp boil.
Yep.
And it is going to be.
We need some
awesome
seafood.
Yeah, it is going to be great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure, and we'll finish this off air here in just one moment.
Absolutely.
But for all of you who are watching and listening, thank you for being here with us. And if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Carbine. And a big shout out to patrons. As always, thank you so much. If you want to become a patron and help support us, you can check us out. And that's patreon.com/WTT Podcast. This can be seen on Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. We'll
Thank
see you in the next one.
Have a good one.
Yeah.